What's up, everybody? My name is Patrick Jones, and I am a former hitting coach in the Baltimore Orioles organization. Now I work with hitters in the private sector in Cincinnati, Ohio. So today we're going to talk about 5 different ways to prepare hitters for a game. So 5 ways to prepare hitters for a game. All right, here we go. So the way I think about it is I put pitchers into 3 different buckets because I don't think you can have the same plan or help hitters the same way for a lower end pitcher versus a higher end pitcher. So there's 3 types of pitchers. So the first type is what I just call roll out of bed. Essentially, you can just roll out of bed and you got a chance to beat them. They're not very good. They're the lowest tier pitcher in the league, whatever level you're at. You essentially just go up there, look middle, and let it rip, which you could maybe make that argument for most pitchers you face, but especially for this one. The point being is there's just nothing to overthink. You don't want to just bombard hitters with different pieces of information on what they're going to do in this count and this count because they have nothing to beat you with. They have nothing to beat you with. So this is the first type of pitcher, the roll out of bed pitcher. So whatever league you're in, this is the lower tier pitcher. The second type of pitcher, and this would be an example of a lower tier type of pitcher where you're just lobbing the ball in and just crushing it. So this is the Ephus with Hernandez back in the day. What's up, everybody? My name is Patrick Jones, and I'm a former hitting coach in the Baltimore Orioles organization. Now I work with hitters in the private sector in Cincinnati, Ohio. In today's episode, we're going to talk about 5 ways to prepare hitters for a game. So we're going to go through 5 different ways that you can help prepare hitters for a game. And it doesn't matter if you're a professional hitting coach with an organization or you're a high school coach. There's going to be things in here that are going to be applicable and helpful for you. So I didn't want to make it so you had to have certain pieces of data in order to make this applicable for you. No matter where you coach at, you're going to be able to utilize this information. So I put pitchers into 3 different types of buckets. 3 different types of buckets. So there's 3 types of pitchers. The first bucket is I call roll out of bed, where essentially you can just roll out of bed and beat this pitcher. All right. We don't need to overthink it. We don't need to make it more complicated than it is. This is going to be the lower tier type of pitcher in your league. And so essentially we're just going up there looking middle and just letting it rip, which you can make that argument you'd want to do most of the time anyway. But the point being is they have nothing to beat you with. So we don't need to make it complicated. So this is the lower end of pitcher that you're gonna face. The roll out of bed. That's the first type of pitcher. That's the first bucket. The roll out of bed pitchers. The second type, and before we go to the second type, here's a clip of a roll out of bed pitcher. I shouldn't say pitcher. This is definitely Hernandez was better than roll out of bed, but I would say a pitch. This is the Ephus pitch that he threw famously to A-Rod, who crushed it for a long home run. So that would be on the roll out of bed. That's the roll out of bed pitch right there. So first type of pitcher is roll out of bed. Second type is what I call a double take. So it's a double take. So you're walking by a pitcher, you're watching him warm up, you glance at him, you look away, and then you're like, oh wait, I need to do a double take. This is not roll out of bed pitcher. This would be a double take pitcher. Roll out of bed is number 1. Double take is number 2. So a double take is essentially the average pitcher. It's the average pitcher, and you don't want to overlook them because before you know it, they're the type of pitcher that you could be in the 6th inning and you've only got 1 run and 2 hits on, and because they don't have overpowering stuff, it's easy to overlook them, and they have some sort of trap, these types of pitchers, whether it's, say, they're working up and in and then they're going to go low and away or whatever it is. So these types of pitchers, you need to have some sort of a plan. You need to have some sort of a plan because they have a trap and they can beat you if you don't overlook them. So view this as more like just the average type of pitcher. You're going to have average fastball. And when I say average fastball right here, this is just the average movement of a four-seam fastball. Obviously, 95 is not an average fastball by any means, but more so the movement for this particular pitch. So double take is number 2, which is the average type of pitcher, and roll out of bed's number 1. And then lastly, we have a dude. So this is a pitcher with plus stuff, plus command, knows how to pitch, going to be the best pitcher that you face, the best pitcher in your league. When you think about somebody like this at the major league level, think about a Paul Skeens, for example, who he has really good stuff. He knows how to pitch, good composure, good pitchability. This is what I call a dude. So whatever level you're at, this is going to be the same type of pitcher. This is a dude. And so against a dude, we have to have a plan, of course, but more importantly, we have to stick to it. And so when I say have a plan, here's why. We can't go up there and have the roll out of bed mindset where we're facing that type of pitcher where, hey, we can make a mistake or even take a pitch off and we'll be okay. If you try to hit everything against a dude, you end up hitting nothing. So you have to have a plan. That's number one. Number two, you have to stick to it. And here's what I mean. I had a hitter come in the other day, and we were talking about some of his recent at-bats, and he had said something. He said, I had my plan when I went up there, but the first pitch of the at-bat, the pitcher threw a ball low and away, and it was a ball or two off, and the umpire called it for a strike. And so when he called it for a strike, he's like, I didn't panic, but I realized, like, oh, shoot, like if he's given that call, if he's given a ball off or two balls off and he's given that pitcher a call on that, I need to make sure I expand the zone. And what ended up happening is he ended up swinging at a pitch he would never swing at because he was so worried about what the umpire was going to call a strike or ball. Can't do that, right? We have to have a plan and then you stick to it. And so whether that means you get rung up on a bad call, you swing at a ball, you roll over, inning double play, whatever it is, we have to stick to the plan because against a dude, the best of the best, you're not going to probably go 4 for 4 against him. You're just trying to get him one time. You're just trying to get him one time per game. And so if every hitter on the team can get him one time, well, then you're going to have enough runs to be able to win the game. But it's not likely that you're going to be able to get him every time. So in order to get him one time, like we have to have a plan and then stick to that plan. So if we start changing, we're less likely to have success. So number one, have a plan. Number two, stick to it. And then lastly, we have to be okay with whatever happens. We have to be okay with whatever happens. It's so easy to play the what if game as a hitter, where you take a pitch you shouldn't have taken, you swung at a pitch you shouldn't have swung at. The umpire calls a bad call. All of that's going to happen. It's all going to happen. And even if you watch major league games and you don't just watch highlights, you'll be able to see that most of those guys, they make mistakes within the at bat too. The biggest difference is they don't panic. Like, yeah, they took a pitch they shouldn't have took, or they swung at a pitch they shouldn't have swung at. Because they don't panic and they just learn from it or just brush it off as whatever, they end up getting a pitch, another mistake, and that's the one we see on Instagram for a home run. So pitchers aren't perfect. They're going to make mistakes just like you will, just like your hitters will. So it's okay. So we have to be okay with the result. So have a plan, stick to it, be okay with the result. The next thing I think is very important to note is, okay, what has this pitcher done recently? And I'll give you a reason why. So when I used to be a hitting coach in the Baltimore Orioles organization, I made a big mistake. And here's the story. So the mistake was I opened up my laptop for the day before the game because I would make a PowerPoint for every game to go over that day's pitcher and just, wanted to show what he had, images, GIFs, all that stuff, some of the stats. And so I looked over his stuff, movement plots. It's like he looked kind of average. His stuff was average. And so I was just looking at what he had been doing over the course of the entire season. That was a mistake. We got out there that first inning because we were the away team, and I had the TrackMan. I was looking at it. This guy was sitting 95 to 97, topping out 98 with a disgusting slider. And everyone was looking at me like this wasn't in the pregame report. I didn't see this I didn't hear about you talking about this in the hitters meeting. And so I just wanted to crawl into a ball and just go into the corner and cry because I thought I was going to get fired for doing a bad job. And so what I didn't realize is this particular pitcher had some injuries early on in the season where he'd pitch a couple games, he would miss a few starts, he was in with a shoulder injury, and then he had a blister after that. And so what I should have done is I should have solely just looked at what had he done the previous 1 to 2 outings he had been out there. And so this is the same thing for you wherever you're coaching at is, yeah, you may have remembered a pitcher last year or maybe even like a month or two ago, but that could drastically change who you see that day, just like it did for me. And so pitchers work on different things throughout the year. They're dealing with injuries. They're adding pitches. They're, they're not going to go to a certain pitches. And then also once the game starts too, they may start feeling a certain pitch that they didn't feel before that game or even the previous few games too. So I only try to look at what have they done the previous 1 to 2 outings now on from that mistake. So that's something to note as well. Don't make the same mistake that I made when it comes to that. The next thing that I think is important is, okay, is this a pitcher with a high strikeout, high walk rate? Here's why. Because if it's somebody who has a high strikeout, high walk rate, that tells me that, yeah, they have some good stuff. But that also tells me that most of their strikeouts are probably on hitters swinging at pitches outside of the zone because they also have a high walk rate too. So some of those hitters are finally getting smart and not chasing, but a lot of them are still chasing, and that's why they have a high strikeout rate. So for this type of pitcher, we want to be aggressive early on, but the deeper in the count it gets, the more selective we become because they're less likely to throw balls the deeper in the count it gets too. That's why they have high walk. So high strikeout, high walk, we're aggressive early, more selective late. And then on the flip side, for a high strikeout, low walk pitcher, we need to be aggressive early in the count. And then the deeper in the count it gets, the more likely a hitter's going to swing and miss, but it may be a swing and miss at a strike as much as it is a ball because they have some good stuff here. So if anything, with 2 strikes, maybe we expand a little bit, but we stay pretty aggressive because they're more than likely going to throw a pitch around the zone. So that's a high strikeout, high walk, and then a high strikeout, low walk. And I like looking at these because these numbers, doesn't matter if you're a high school coach, college, wherever, you're going to have this information. So no matter what level you at, it's still applicable. This is something that I think not a lot of people always take into consideration, but I always like to keep notes on what does the data not show. So I went to high school with a player who's still pitching in the major leagues right now. His name is Brent Suter, and he pitches for the Cincinnati Reds. And geez, I think he's been in the big leagues now for nearly 10 years. And if you would have told me back in high school that this guy is going to make it to the major leagues, I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, he was at a junior year in high school. He almost got cut from the team. He didn't play at all. He didn't do anything because he's throwing 80 miles an hour as a pitcher. And even to this day, he doesn't even throw that hard. But there's something about him. Like it's hard to pick up. He hides the ball well. Like whatever it is, it's just quirky. He gets major league hitters out at the end of the day. And so nothing that the data says, oh, this guy's could get major league hitters out. None of the numbers say that, but yet he does. And so I think it's good to have some information on different guys like that, where it's hard to pick up the pitch or just it feels like it gets you on you quick. So you need to start a little bit earlier. Or for some pitchers, it's, hey, the second they start walking a couple guys, they get rattled and then everything falls apart. So maybe we put that into the game plan too, where, hey, maybe we're going to be a little bit more patient because if we can get a few walks, then this guy just falls apart completely. And so I think it's always important to have a couple different things on what the data doesn't show and some notes on that too for those reasons. And then a few of the more obvious things is, okay, like how have they had success? How have they had success? Is it from throwing a lot of strikes early in the count? Is it from getting hitters to chase? What exactly is the reason why? Because we want to stay away from that. And then we want to dive into more so is how have they struggled? Because that's what we want to attack. So maybe it's, hey, when hitters attack his fastball early in the count, like man, like that he leaves him over the middle of the plate, and that's when he gets in trouble and starts to panic. And then after that, he can't locate his breaking ball because he starts overthrowing or whatever it is. So how have they had success? And then how have they struggled? Because we want to know like both of those, because however they've struggled, that's what we want to attack as well. And then two things that I think are very important on top of how are they had success and then how have they struggled is how are they going to start us off and then how are they going to finish us? And this is important because pitchers are creatures of habit. From what I've seen, no matter who it is or where they're at, they're going to start hitters off generically the same way. And then once they get to 2 strikes, they're going to try to finish hitters off the same way too. So 0-0 count and 2 strike count, they start hitters off routinely the same. And then however they normally try to finish hitters off, that's how they're going to do it. And so we want to know that so we can game plan for that. So we're going to talk about an example right here. This example is Logan Webb. So Logan Webb, you can see 0-0 count, pretty similar. Nothing crazy. The difference between the right-handed hitter and the left-handed hitter, 60 and 53%. So 17 and 19, then 21, 27. So pretty similar 0-0 count. If you're playing the numbers, more than likely you're going to throw a fastball. When we get to 2 strikes, though, like, man, this changes drastically. So the fastball is nearly cut in half, now 33.3%. The sweeper for right-handed hitters has doubled, almost 40%. Change up, and then for look at left-handed hitters, the fastball is now down to 40%. And if you go down to the changeup for left-handed hitters, man, now that's the most likely at 44.7%. So it's going to be unique and different for every hitter because you don't want to go up there and there's some hitters who don't necessarily want to know or want to look for a particular pitch shape that doesn't help them a lot. They just want to set speeds. And then other types of hitters, like they're just more reactionary hitters. So you have to know what type of hitter you are. I'll give you a quick story that's kind of embarrassing. I remember when I was in college, we had the signs from the other team, and one of our coaches would just call out our number if he was throwing a slider. And so I was up at the plate, and he called my number out. Guy threw a slider in the dirt, and I swung. And so I quickly realized, like, I don't want to know what pitch is coming. I'm looking for a fastball over the middle of the plate, and I'm going to react to everything else. That's just me, though. That doesn't mean that's the right way for everybody or wrong way. Everyone's a little bit different. So it's good to have these numbers, but I think it's more so just for hitters to know, maybe in the back of their mind, where hey, there's a better chance he's going to throw that's the speed of a slider or the shape of the slider or maybe a changeup, whatever it is. So that's going to be unique to each one. So that's a great example of someone who starts hitters off one way and then finish hitters another way. Couple more points here. Release point, extremely important because similar to some of the other things we've talked about, it doesn't necessarily matter if you know the who you're facing that day. Like once you see the pitcher warming up, you can tell their release point, and their release point's going to tell you a lot of different pieces of information. So if we go back actually for a second to Logan Webb, so Logan Webb, his release point is closer to that 3/4 sidearm. And so his fastball has that arm side run to it because it's further down. And he has his slider is a sweeper because his release point's further down. So it's more that east-west movement on a slider versus somebody who like a Justin Verlander who's more over the top. That's going to be more the fastball that's straight. And then if anything has some hop to it or feel like it's rising. And so just the further down you go, that's when the fastball starts to run more. And then off of the fastball, you'll be able to know what the other pitch shapes are going to be like too. So for Verlander over the top, his fastball is going to have some hop to it. And then his breaking ball is going to have some good depth to it, more that straight over the top spin. So it's going to have, more that 12-6 feel where that good depth to it versus somebody like Logan Webb with a lower release point is going to have more of that east-west sweep movement versus over the top 12-6. So that's something else you can tell from the release point. Hitter's cue. So before a hitter goes on the on-deck circle, sometimes, whether even right now, I'm not coaching in an organization, but maybe I'll send a hitter a text, or even when I was coaching, it's giving them one last cue before they go out there as just a reminder of whatever I think is going to help them the most. And it's something that we've usually talked about beforehand, but maybe if it's somebody who's extremely amped up and antsy at the plate, I'll just, as a reminder, like, hey, relax body, aggressive mind, because I still want them to be aggressive mentally, because I want them to be able to pull the trigger at any point, but I want their body to be very relaxed because I know they've been really amped up. So that would be different for each guy, but something very, very simple, boom, as just they walk out, just as one last reminder, whatever it is that they're working on. So if we go back to the very beginning, just to recap the 5 different ways you can help hitters get ready before a game. What type of pitcher are they going to face? Is it going to be a roll out of bed, a double take, or a dude? What has that pitcher done their previous 2 starts? Just remember the mistake I made, and you don't want to have that feeling. What does the data not show? How have they had success and struggled? And then lastly, going back to the Logan Webb example, how will they start you off and then try to finish you too? So hope you enjoyed that. If you did, subscribe below on YouTube, and please leave a comment if you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good day. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks again for watching this video on YouTube on Patrick Jones Baseball's YouTube channel.